taking a lightning ride with yours truly on the second episode, already the second episode of this Lightning Rider podcast, is a good friend of mine, actually. She's a singer-songwriter, musician, author. She's an award-winning sommelier, real Renaissance woman, my friend Astrid Young. How are you, Astrid?
I'm good, Mark. How you doing?
Very good and very excited to talk to you. Last
Yeah,
time
me
we
too.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited. Last time we saw each other was like 8 years ago or something. There's a lot of stuff. How you been keeping up? Since the pandemic and everything. Did you do
Well,
okay?
I've been keeping pretty busy actually. I'm a freelance writer, so that part of my work didn't really slow down during the pandemic. It actually picked up quite a bit. So I didn't have a lot of the downtime that people speak of.
Right. No
So
downtime for you. You were productive.
no, not
You
really.
doing freelance for what? For newspapers or?
Oh God, no. It's not nearly that exciting. I write web content and blogs and things like that. So
Great. So you're
I
always
write a
keeping
lot of
creative.
different stuff. I write a lot about technology and marketing and things like that.
Right on. That's cool. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about your music though, because I'm really excited about what you've been doing lately, and it's really exciting to know that they released. Was it last August? Lay Me
Yeah,
Down, your single.
just this past August, yeah. The first single from the record. So since then we've recorded 6 more songs. And we're almost done. I mean, most of the songs are pretty close to being fully mixed. We've only got like a few random overdubs to do and should be finished it by December for sure.
Who?
We actually have a session tomorrow. My brother is playing a harmonica solo on one of the songs.
No
So
way. No way.
yeah,
Really? You got Neil on the album?
yeah.
That's great, man. So you originally you released this one. I believe it was, well, it's when we last played together, I believe, around that time, right? One
Yeah,
Night at
that's
Giant
correct.
Rock was released in what, 2014? Or
2014, yeah.
so what made you want to redo this one instead of Matinee, which was one of my
Well, yeah,
faves?
and matinee is another thing. I don't think I'm going to touch matinee just because it is what it is, but we'll get into that in a minute. So One Night at Giant Rock, and I have to say now that the scope has changed a little bit since we first started working on it. So Victor DiLorenzo, who is my co-producer on One at Giant Rock, the intention was always to make vinyl from it.
Yeah.
So we had wanted to do that almost immediately after, but the record was just a few minutes too long for single vinyl. So
Oh,
we had to decide what we wanted to do. We didn't really want to edit it. So we thought, well, why don't we just there's a few songs that didn't make it to the record. So we'll finish up those songs, maybe record a couple more and make it a double vinyl. So that was the idea, but we just never really got around to it. And then when we started talking about it again, excuse me, during COVID, that's kind of when we started cranking it up. And then I actually became acquainted with Eddie Kramer during that time. And
wow.
it's interesting. I ran into him in the grocery store in January. And
Whoa,
I,
wait,
as
let me stop you for a second. You ran into Eddie Kramer, who produced Led Zeppelin. I mean, Jimi Hendrix, and how many more like classic albums. Where
oh
was this?
yeah,
In Picton? Not in Picton, was it?
yeah, in Picton.
Does he
Well,
live?
I actually met him because he dined at my restaurant a couple of times. So
Okay,
we
yes.
already knew each other, but yeah, this on this particular occasion, I ran into him in the grocery store. I was in the metro, and we were in the self checkout line, and we got to chatting. And I was just on my way out the door, and I turned around and I said, "Hey, Eddie, I got this project I'm about to start doing, and I'm wondering if you'd be interested in working on it with us." And he'd already heard the record, and he was a fan already, so he was very enthusiastic about it. He said, "Yes, I absolutely want to work on this." So that's how it all started. And then when we got together shortly after that, maybe about a month later, and started talking about songs, that's how the first single came about. Because I said, well, I've got this song, and I recorded it a long time ago, and I like the piano on it's really good, but I think everything else can go. We can re-record everything else. But he really liked the vocal that was already on there.
Killer.
So we kept the piano and the vocal, and then we kind of built the track around that. And so that's the single, Lay Me Down. That was the first thing that we did. And it was crazy because it happened so fast. I mean, from that conversation, which was like me and Eddie sitting at his kitchen table on a Friday night and discussing what we were going to do, and he said, well, we need a string arranger because I think we need strings on this. And I said, oh, well, I got a guy. So I hooked him up with my string arranger and a guy named Darcy Hepner. And he wrote a beautiful arrangement for it. And then we scheduled the session, but the catch was that Darcy was going on vacation. And so we had to get the drums and the bass done before Darcy went away. And this was about a week later, right? So it's like, okay, so Eddie booked the string date for the following Thursday, and we had to get the drums and bass done before then. So sitting there on a Friday night, from that Friday night, we were in the studio doing cutting the drums and bass on Sunday, and did the strings on the Thursday, and then they started mixing it, and it was done like a week later.
Wow. Actually, I went and looked at it. I watched it last night, and Eddie was really into it, man. You could tell
Oh
he was
yeah.
really digging the tune, man.
Oh yeah.
He gave me goosebumps just watching him listening to your music with the strings and all. It's absolutely killer. And Vicky Hamilton was on our first episode, and she was praising your single, man. She was really, really praising your single. And I really understand now. It's really, really killer. Are you getting any radio play at all?
No, not yet. Actually, I've been so busy with making the record and doing all the other things that I
Yeah.
do. I haven't really had a lot of time. I don't have management right now. So it's, as you can imagine, it's a lot,
I
and
know.
including all the other work that I do. So I'm actively, looking for a label and management to kind of take over the business end of things, so I can just focus on the creative. And Vicky Vicky put out the first single,
Yeah.
so that's on Dark Spark Records, and which I'm very grateful for her to do. It's funny because she said to me a few years ago, hey, if you ever want to put out a single or anything, if you got any new music, let me know and I'll put it out for you. So this just kind of happened at the right time.
She could actually like see in the future and foresee these singles market, right? Because that's what it is now. It's like we're back to the 45s all over again, right? It's like when we were
Yeah,
kids,
yeah.
I'm gonna go buy the Miss You single by the Stones, or it was absolutely amazing back then. It was exciting. So music is exciting again, and I was really excited for you. But you knew Vicky from before, because okay, let me get this straight. When did you actually leave TO for LA? That was was it late 80s?
1985, something like that.
85. Because I remember seeing pictures of you in metal bands, and I think it was Metal Edge magazine or something. Was it Sacred
Oh,
Rose?
with what's that?
What was the name of the band? Was it Sacred
Sacred
Rose?
Child.
Sacred Child. I knew there was a sacred in there somewhere. And
Yeah.
so how did you hook up?
So, well, it was kind of weird because, most people go to Los Angeles and they spend years trying to
Right.
something happening. And I landed there, and I was in a signed band within 6 weeks.
Crazy.
Somehow, I don't
Crazy.
know how that happened. Anyway, so that was Sacred Child, and we made 1.5 records. Actually, we made a second album that never came out, unfortunately, but that's a long story. But anyway, I met Vicky after Sacred Child. Actually, I can't even remember how I met Vicky. Just because, we know so many people in common, so it's not out of the realm of possibilities that we were just kind of hanging out with the same people.
Right.
But probably through, I was good friends with Frank Infante from Blondie,
Mm-hmm.
and all the people that were around the New York Dolls kind of
Yeah, he's
gang.
playing with the Dolls now, isn't he?
Oh, what's that?
Frank is playing with the Dolls now, isn't he?
Oh, probably. He was
Yeah,
really good
yeah,
friends with those guys. Of course, none of them are, they're all gone now. So
yeah.
it would make sense that Frank was around doing something around that, because he was really good friends with all of them.
Yeah,
So
because we lost Sil a couple of years ago, Sylvain, which is Very
Yeah.
unfortunate. He's such a sweetheart. I would have loved to have him on the podcast.
He
So
was cool. He was a really great energy, Sylvain. Definitely.
a
Yeah.
sweetheart, a real sweetheart. He's got a few friends in Montreal as well, so we have some friends in common. So I was hoping, but not going to happen. Glad I have you though. So LA, what was it like for Astrid Young to tell me about those days, Astrid? Because we never actually sat down and we never got to chat about your LA, days and that era. I have so many
Oh,
questions. We never sat down and
well, there's
I don't know.
so many things that
Did you get a
probably
day
didn't
job
talk
there?
about.
Did
It
you?
is, I don't know. And it was, it's interesting just being in a band during that time, and playing, the Sunset Strip and being in a hair band. And, I mean,
Yeah.
this is it's interesting because I didn't know Vicky then, but I mean, she was managing Poison, and we played a few gigs with Poison, and we loved playing with Poison and Warrant too, because their crowd was all, young girls that would just go
Right.
nuts, right? So they'd always fill the club. So it was great playing with either of those bands. But it was also, back during those times, I mean, Guns N' Roses were playing the clubs. Jane's Addiction was still playing like underground clubs,
Oh,
like the Scream Club and stuff like that. I mean, places that don't exist anymore. But there was a great scene down there. It was kind of like a punkabilly underground post-punk scene that
yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
it was just really cool, which is where I met most of my friends. They're all still friends of mine to this day, the ones that are still with us. It's interesting because there's a guy named Ruben Blue who had a magazine back in the early mid 80s, called Scratch, and then he changed the name of it to LA Rocks. But he's been releasing all these photographs from back then,
No
and it's
way.
crazy to go down memory lane and see all that. Yeah, people are saying, oh yeah, this is like the original social media. But if you want to see what Hollywood really looked like back then, you just look up Ruben. I think he goes by Ruben Mac Blue on Facebook. But the pictures are just incredible. And there's pictures of like all the guys in the Chili Peppers and Jane's
Really?
Addiction, Guns N' Roses and stuff like that when they're babies. They're just so young. But that's really what the scene was back then. I mean, it was just really it was really fun and vibrant, and people were going to clubs and seeing bands. And most of the bands that you'd see were all pretty good. It's not like 10 years later when you'd be lucky if you saw something that was like didn't suck too bad.
I know the 90s were kind of tough, right? Yeah. What a bummer that was. So when you're talking about Jane's Addiction, was that like pre Nothing Shocking or around that
Yeah,
time?
like this before
Just
they even
before.
had a record. Yeah. Mhm.
Wow. Okay, so back to Toronto now.
Mhm.
Do you remember when we first met?
I do. We were both hanging around with Maria Del Mar,
Yeah.
and you were playing in a band with her in Trip Phoenix, and I was kind of like an honorary member of the band for like a minute there. And you know what? I just found a bunch of pictures from back then, but I
Are you
don't think you're in
serious?
any of them. Yeah.
Really? Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I have them right here.
Are
Let's
you
see.
are you serious? That's the
Yeah,
summer we met. That would be 2002.
yeah, something like that.
Oh yeah. Oh my, that's Jay right there too.
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking hot
Jay
there.
McBride,
And that's with Charles, right? The
Charles
photographer.
Whaley, yeah,
Yeah. Oh
and
my,
Maria.
Maria. Let's talk about Maria.
Aw.
Let's
Yeah, but
talk about
you're not
Maria.
in any of these pictures.
I'm not. And you came to
No.
my place. Remember when we you came, I believe you came to see me at the Rivoli one time with Maria.
Yeah.
And we went back to the apartment and we smoked a big fucking joint. And we stayed up all night. And I just couldn't believe you guys were singing. And I just couldn't believe this was happening. That was a golden period. And Toronto
Those
was
were
really exciting to
good
beginning of,
times. Yeah.
yeah, very good. And that's when I really started really digging your music and everything. I went to, what was it? Was it College Street? They had this indie record store, and I was wondering, I was asking about Matinee and didn't have it, and I was really pissed off, and I was promoting you, man. I was like promoting the hell out of you. Yeah, those were really good times. Has Toronto changed at all? I
I
haven't
don't
been there.
know.
I
Like,
haven't been
I
back.
mean, like any place else has changed, I suppose. But the problem is that, and I'm not going to say that there's not good bands out there or anything like that, but it's really hard to get decent gigs. I mean, there's so many, kind of average bands that,
Right.
will play for nothing.
Yeah.
So as far as club owners go and venues go, they've set the bar really low. And the good bands really don't have much of a chance to get decent playing gigs. So it's I think that COVID, they say COVID, killed the music industry, but I think it was
Mm.
dying a lot before that,
Yeah.
and I've seen that. I mean, I did a couple of weeks worth of dates out on the road this spring, and it's amazing how difficult it is to get a decent guarantee from a club owner now. And, just because it's so, the scene just isn't what it used to be. And it's really sad. It's really sad because it used to be back in the day. I mean, you could go out and see a couple of good bands a night, and you'd be really excited to go see a band. And now, like, a great band comes to town and the ticket prices are outrageous.
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
I don't know how people can afford to go see live music anymore. Like, I wanted to go see last year King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard, and the tickets were like $400.
Those guys are amazing. My stepson turned me on to them. They're
Yeah,
killer band. Really
I know.
stoner rock. Really, they remind me
Well,
of a lot of bands we
they
liked.
they do all kinds of stuff, but I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen them a couple of times, and they're like, I mean, as great as their records are, it's nothing compared to their live shows. They are so good. They're so
What I
amazingly
hear.
good, and so worth it. But $400, it's like, oh crap. I saw them like 2 years ago for 75. It's
Yeah.
like, so what's the story?
What happened? So what's your view on the industry? Is there even an industry anymore? I don't think so. I think the record companies killed the industry.
Well,
Suicide.
somebody's making money off it. I mean, I just, it's really depressing, and especially when you try to make a record the way I'm trying to make it right
Yeah.
now, the old-fashioned way. But you know, it's kind of remarkable to me that as much as important as music is in people's lives, why is it worthless to people? Why won't people pay for it?
You
And
know why?
like,
I'll tell
if
you
they
why,
are
Astrid.
paying for it, if they are paying for it, somebody else is making the money,
Yeah.
not the
Right.
musicians, and so it's not even a viable career path anymore for kids. And that's just, it's really depressing in so many ways, and especially for somebody like me, that this is, my core identity. I've been playing music since I was a child, and
Toddler. Yeah.
still in me. It still comes out of me. But then, you get these moments where you go, what am I doing? You
And your
know?
voice has gotten so strong. Your voice is much stronger. I love your voice. I've always been a fan of your open tunings and all that because I love the way I love your guitar playing. You know that I've told you that before. You you're really really cool. I love the way you play guitar, but your voice, especially on the new single, it's killer, man. It gave me
Thank you.
goosebumps. It really 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 touched me when I heard it.
Well, I'll tell you a little secret. I mean, I actually sang that 20 years ago.
Are you serious? Really? Well,
So
that's a
this
good
is
take then. That's a really good take.
Well, this is the weird thing because, we originally cut that track in Los Angeles. I think it was in 1996. I cut it with some guys that I was playing with at the time at a place called Ocean Studios in Burbank. And they had a beautiful piano there. So if I ever needed to cut a track, that's usually where I'd go.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really crazy. There was the guitar, I mean, the piano was great. The B3 was great, and everything else was like, it was kind of so-so. And then when I was in that band Ist, the power trio,
Hmm.
in Toronto, which is the end of the 90s or something
Yeah.
like that, we were doing we were making that record at Signal to Noise Studios in Toronto.
Yeah, with
And
Rob, right? Rob Sanzo?
and so it was that I pulled out that song again. Of course, it was on 2-inch, right? And so we recut the bass and drums, and I cut the vocal, and I still didn't like the bass and drums. I thought, it's still not doing it for me. So it just sat and sat and sat and sat. And I had actually reached out to Rob right at the beginning of COVID, and I said, hey, do you want to have a crack at remixing this song? Because I think it's good, but I might have another go at the vocal again. And he even said to me, without even listening to it, he goes, I don't know, you should probably listen to it again, because there was something about that vocal. I seem to remember there was something about it that was really good. And I went, okay, whatever. But I was convinced that I could sing it better, but I never did it. Right.
Right.
Well, then, a few years later, 20 years later,
You just
no,
recut the drums and the
2 years later,
bass.
2 years later, actually, I dumped it in Eddie Kramer's lap, and he just refused to even consider redoing the vocal. And he goes, "Ah!"
Good call. Good call. Who plays the bass? Because the bass is killer on that track as well. It's really round, really fat.
John Diamond.
Who's John Diamond? I
He
have no
plays
idea.
with Blackie and the Rodeo Kings
Okay.
and a few other people. But yeah, Johnny's great. Johnny plays with I met him because he plays with Tom Wilson quite a
Oh
lot.
yeah. Oh yeah. I like
So
Tom Wilson.
it came up so quickly, and Eddie and his engineer were saying, well, we know this bass player, and I said, now let me make a couple of calls before you call your guy. And it just so happened that Johnny was available, and so he came up and did it with Ray.
Yeah, that's it. Your hubby's on the record, right? Right. You got Victor from Violent Femmes.
Yep.
He played with you when we played together, right? He was.
Yep.
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Victor was there. It was
Yeah,
Victor.
you met him.
Yeah, absolutely. Your manager back then too, Linda, was there, I believe.
Linda,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So listen, I mean, I was going through, your biography and everything, and checking out some stuff on the internet, on the web last night, preparing for this conversation, and I didn't know that you actually sang backups for Johnny Cash.
Well,
You're not one to boast, are you, Astrid? You never boast. You never toot your own horn, which is cool. But I mean, wow, I didn't know that Johnny Cash.
well, it was actually on a Ben Keith record. And
Ben Keith, the guy who plays with Neil, right?
yeah, he's the pedal steel player.
Pedal steel guy. Okay.
Yeah. So it was actually on one of Ben's records, and yeah, so
How was that? Do you have any anecdotes, or I want to hear stories about that? Did you meet Johnny, or did you just come in and do vocals?
Well, it was actually during the time when we were making Harvest Moon.
Oh my God.
So we were in the studio doing that, and of course Ben plays on that record, and we were just there, and Ben said, hey, we're taking a day off tomorrow. Do you mind coming in and singing on this record that I'm making? So that's how that happened. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So it's another situation of being in the right place at the right time.
Right, synchronicity. That's absolutely amazing. But Harvest Moon, going back to the Neil Young record, your brother, you're all over that album. I have a feeling you're all over that album. It was you, Peggy, and Emmylou Harris, right?
Peggy's not on it.
Peggy's not on it. She's only in the video, right? Oh yeah, she was in the video, I believe.
Dancing in the video, but she the singers in the video are me and Nicolette Larson.
Yeah.
So it was singing on the record. It was me, Nicolette, and Linda Ronstadt.
Sounded amazing. The three voices together. Angelic.
Well, Linda sang on Harvest Moon. She didn't sing at the same time as me and Nicolette, but yeah, we're on the same song. So
yeah. Did you enjoy that session? Doing that?
It was great, and it was kind of out of the blue because it was like right after Thanksgiving, and it wasn't expected. I had no expectation that it was going to happen, and we were just kind of sitting around after dinner, and Neil pulled out a guitar and he started playing War of Man, and he said, what would you sing on this? And I kind of,
the counter melody
little part, and what?
You do like a counter melody, I think, eh? In that song?
Well, me and Nicolette sang one verse together that was like that he didn't sing. Yeah. So it's total kind of a weird harmonies that I came up with. It was really funny.
Yeah, that was killer. Yeah. I love that.
So I came up with those parts, and I remember at the time too, Nicolette kind of looking at me going, that's weird. And I said, yeah, it's me.
Yeah, it's good weird. It's good weird. We like good weird. Absolutely. Would you go ahead?
No,
I didn't want to cut you.
You didn't.
I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Must be the weed. Did I say that?
We call that an MRI.
Yeah, there you go.
Marijuana related
I just had
incident.
a moment there for a minute. Would you consider penning a new book, Astrid? Or is that behind you? Have you
Not at
said
all.
it all?
No, not at all.
New
Actually,
chapter?
the last edition of that book was released in 2009. So
Yeah, it's
this is
been a while.
Being Young that we're talking about. And
Yeah.
since then, so much has happened, obviously. And also my publisher went out of business. So I'm looking for a new publisher right now. I just started to send out queries, and both my brothers have agreed to participate on an update to the book. And I think the new
Wow.
edition of the book is going to be significantly more messy.
Messy. In a good
Well,
way or?
it's funny because I've changed quite a bit. I think I'm a little bit more interested in telling the truth now, and also there are people that I wrote about in the book that I just kind of touched on a few things, and I didn't really get into the nitty-gritty of things. So people have passed away in the interim, so I'm probably not going to get sued if I say certain things. And, I think ultimately what it comes down to is when you're writing about other people, you just want to make sure you don't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
And, but the reality of it is it's my story. And I think that, in the context of the way the book is about, my relationship to my family and, how my father kind of made us who we are,
Hmm.
both my brothers have some interesting perspectives on that. And since I published the book, I've found out so many things about my dad and about my family, and things that I was able to kind of fill in the blanks on. So I think the next edition is going to be a, even for people that bought the book before and loved it, and it was a bestseller in its first edition, but I think that even the people that have already read it are going to get a lot out of it, just because there's a lot of in between the line stuff that I'm going to fill in. And
Right.
there's a lot more stories that I'm going to be able to tell now that I couldn't tell then. And so there you go.
Going back to the record, you're involving the fans, right? Oh, my producer's telling me we got 10 minutes left. You're involving the fans this time. So you're asking them to pitch in if they wish. So where can they pitch in
So
financially?
I set up a crowdfunding site. It's astridyoung.rocks.
Hmm.
And there you can donate. You can there's a pre-sale, so you can pre-purchase the album.
Hmm.
You can buy house concerts or virtual private concerts there too, as you wish. So there's tons of ways that you can get involved in this record. And trust me, making a record this way is not cheap.
Not
So
cheap.
I hope I can get.
Yeah, you got Eddie Kramer. I mean, that's not cheap.
Eddie, yeah, number one, but also, who played bass on this is,
Was it David J?
it was David J.
From
Haskins
Bauhaus?
from, Love and Rockets
Love and
and
Rockets. Yeah.
Bauhaus.
Yeah.
So who is, it's interesting because, I wrote a screenplay that I optioned a couple of times, and I made a little movie, and it's called Haunted When the Minutes Drag, which is actually the name of a Love and Rockets song,
Yeah.
and which I was listening to almost on a loop back when I first started writing this.
Mhm.
And then when we got together to do this, I mean, I was really excited to be able to play with David and everything. But I had this song, and I was very hesitant to tell him about this because I thought, is this going to sound like too much like a fangirl kind of thing, that,
Yeah.
oh, I named my movie after, your
Yeah.
song, whatever. Anyway, so and just to, the backstory, and you might know a little bit about it, that Haunted When the Minutes Drag, it's about a female rock star who is a serial killer. And anyway, so that's the premise of the story, and it's been optioned a couple of times, never been made properly, but one of these days. And I'm actually writing it as a novel right now too, so that'll probably come out before the movie ever does. Anyway, so I have this song that we were going to record. I had the music, I had the melody. It was pretty much finished, except I didn't have lyrics. So I kind of threw it out on the table, and I said, if anybody's got any ideas for lyrics, lay it on me, right? So
Mhm.
David came back to me and he goes, I've got lyrics. And this is exactly how he said it. He says, I have lyrics for this that fit like OJ's glove. And I went, "Oh, well, that
Okay.
sounds interesting." So
All
he
right.
sings the lyrics, and guess what it's called?
What's it
It's
called?
called How the Beautiful Get Away with Murder.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wow.
But when you consider the fact that, I wrote this story about a female serial killer, and it's a lot about the cult of celebrity, because
Right.
she getting away with it. And so at that point, I felt like I had to divulge my story of that, so
Sure.
we were both pretty surprised about it. So, and I'm thinking this is going to be the next single that comes out, is How the Beautiful Get Away with Murder. It's a wonderful song. I'll send you the file. Actually,
Please
it's
do.
all,
Please do.
yeah, I can't wait for you to hear it. It's a duet that we do together. So
All right. I can't wait to do mine with you too.
yeah, and I have a song on the record that has some French in it.
Are you serious? Count me in.
Yeah, just the chorus.
Let me know. I'll be
The
there
French.
for sure.
Yeah,
Astrid, thank you very much.
my pleasure. Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot. Hope to see you in the
To
flesh
hang
next
out with
time.
you for this short time.
It was great. Thank you very much.
All right.
Our guest today has been Astrid Young. I'm Mark Arseno. This has been the Lightning Rider podcast on CNV America. Until next time.